Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. If you want to check out all of the other Harry Potter reviews that I've been doing for the last few months, you can definitely check those out below. I just want to apologize for looking so dead at the moment. My eyes are really red because I'm so tired. It's been a very long day. I just spent copious amounts of time perfecting my notes for this review because I failed to take good ones while reading. But we are finally here to talk about Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which, if you did not know, is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series. Now, honestly, I have always considered Order of the Phoenix one of my least favorite, like my second to least favorite Harry Potter book, because when I think of it, I just associate it with all of the bad things that are in this book because it is a very dark, depressing book. But this time around, I really loved it. Like, I didn't just enjoy it or tolerate it, I loved reading it this time. I just feel like as I'm getting older reading Harry Potter, I'm letting go of the really immature and trivial issues I've had with the story, which has allowed me not only to enjoy it at a greater length, but also to read it more critically. And I'm loving the way I've been rereading Harry Potter for the last 2 or 3 years, and I can't wait to do so more in the future. I definitely have a newfound love and respect for the Order of the Phoenix. It really is a fabulous, fabulous novel, despite what teenage Emma probably would have told you. So I'm excited to dive into spoilers for this book. So if you haven't read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix yet, you definitely should go out and read it and come back so we can discuss it together, because this is a spoiler-filled review. But that is it, so bye non-spoiler people! Going off what I said concerning all the negatives of this book, if you had asked me a few years ago, like, what are the distinctive parts of Order of the Phoenix, I would probably say Harry's trauma, Harry almost getting expelled, Ron and Hermione becoming prefects but not Harry. I would talk about Umbridge. I would talk about Harry's disastrous date with Cho. I would talk about Dumbledore ignoring Harry. So much bad stuff going on. That is what I used to associate Order of the Phoenix with. I just feel like with this reread, I've begun to appreciate so much more in this book specifically, and I've really let the smaller, light, really hopeful parts of this book shine through all of the darkness that's usually covering over it. There's a lot of things I think that are underrated about Order of the Phoenix, and I think it's because the movie is such a terrible adaptation of the book because it cuts so much out. But one thing that I feel like is always forgotten is how Ginny becomes more comfortable around Harry at the beginning when they are at Grimmauld Place together all summer. But the most distinctive moment about this is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione and everyone are going back on the Hogwarts Express, and Ron and Hermione go to the prefixed carriage, and Harry is left with Neville and Luna and Ginny, and he asks Ginny if she wants to get a seat, and Ginny goes off with her friends, and Harry remembers that they don't really spend time together throughout the school year, and it makes him sad because he had gotten so used to Ginny's presence. I love that line so much because so many people say that Harry's feelings for Ginny came out of nowhere, and there is distinct moments in Order of the Phoenix where you can see that Harry starts thinking of Ginny in a different light when she starts dating boys and whatnot. And even though he is like sort of dating Cho throughout this novel, like there are some little tidbits of his feelings for Ginny that are implemented into this book, and I love it, and everyone forgets about it. I feel like it is a minority of this fandom who actually ships Hinny, but I am for sure one of them, and one of the things that I've definitely noticed about this reread is how much more I've appreciated Harry's and Ginny's relationship, and it really starts here. Also, really sad side note, when Mrs. Weasley is dealing with the boggart and she's seeing all of her loved ones dead, she sees Fred and George together because even in death, she didn't imagine them being separated. We have to dive right into the intense topics for this book because everyone refers to Harry as being angsty in this book, and that is not the case. Harry is not just moody in this book. He's experiencing trauma. He definitely has post-traumatic stress disorder, and these outbursts that he keeps having are not just teenage angst. It's a result of him seeing a classmate murdered before his eyes and being forced to fight for his life against his worst nightmare. I definitely used to be one of those people that was like, ugh, I hate Order of the Phoenix because Harry is so angsty and it's so annoying. But over the years, I've definitely reflected and realized that we shouldn't shame Harry for his reactions to the pain he's experiencing. We should empathize. I'm not suggesting that him snapping at his friends when they're trying to be supportive is a good thing. I just think we need to not trivialize these traumatic experiences. Another thing we really need to talk about is the fact that throughout the Harry Potter series, microaggressions are constantly looked over and never talked about. Harry Potter has always been mildly fatmesic or fatphobic in the way that Harry responds to people like Uncle Vernon and Dudley and Crabbe and Goyle. Obviously, Harry doesn't hate them because they're fat. He hates them because they're terrible to him. But in retaliation, he goes after their size and insults them for their weight, and that's where the problem lies. And of course, we have the scene in Philosopher's Stone where Dudley starts eating the birthday cake that Hagrid bought for Harry because all of them are super hungry. But Hagrid gives Dudley a pigtail, and obviously pig has been used as a slur against fat people. But what upsets me in Order of the Phoenix, and what prompted me to talk about this now instead of in Philosopher's Stone, is when the Slytherins are watching the Gryffindors practice, and Pansy Parkinson said something along the lines why would anyone want to look like they have worms coming out of their head to Angelina? And as Angelina is a black woman, this is obviously a targeted insult at her hairstyle, which she keeps in braids, which is a large part of black culture. It's just so interesting to me how we are like so quick to call out mistreatment regarding prejudices that are existent in the wizarding world towards muggleborns and house elves and giants and werewolves. But when it comes to microaggressions that are present in our society today and are not magic based, we fail to recognize them a lot of the time. So while I love Sirius Black as a character, I don't like him very much in this book. In these scenes where Harry's able to talk to Sirius through the fireplace, he is constantly sort of egging Harry on to be a little bit more rebellious. After Harry says that he doesn't think that meeting in Hogsmeade would be a good idea because he doesn't want Sirius to be caught and be put back in Azkaban, Sirius says, "You're less like your father than I thought. The risk would have been what made it fun for James." I just think it's so unfair because Sirius knows how hurtful that would be to Harry because Harry spends so much of his time striving to be like his father. I really have to agree with Hermione in this book that Sirius is sort of trying to vicariously live through the Golden Trio because he is stuck in Grimmauld Place and like they have the opportunity to do everything Sirius has wanted to do. I just think some of his reactions in this book were inappropriate as Harry's godfather, and this is why it's so hard to fully commit to the idea that Sirius is a great father figure for Harry, because in Order of the Phoenix, he sort of becomes more of a friend towards Harry, whereas Harry is still trying to view him as this parental figure. And it's especially a shame for me to feel this way because we just have such limited time with Sirius in this novel. I mean, we have a limited time with him in general, but specifically in Order of the Phoenix, all the times that I wanted him to have like those extra moments with Harry, they're plagued by these moments of him being inappropriate in my opinion. One scene I love is when Hermione and Ron are trying to convince Harry to teach them Defense Against the Dark Arts. They're just like listing off all of his accomplishments, and I always find it so funny how Ron and Hermione are just like hysterically laughing every time Harry tries to defend himself and deny how amazing he is. You can just so perfectly see it in your head of Harry like frantically trying to defend his viewpoint of himself, and they're just like laughing their heads off because it's so funny because Harry is amazing. But one other thing I love about this scene is that Hermione says Voldemort's name for the very first time, and like that is what convinces Harry. I just feel like it's a groundbreaking moment for the trio, and like this is really where they start to accept roles of adulthood in this fight against Voldemort, and I just love it so much. Also, of course, I love the Quibbler article part of this story. It's just like such a triumph because not only does it piss Umbridge off and make everything so much more difficult for her, but this is really where people start to come around to Harry and they start to believe him. And like, of course I would have wanted them to do that from the beginning, but because of Harry's honesty and his resilience to not be silenced, they really start to believe him. And it's just a really heartwarming moment. And also very satisfying because Umbridge is pissed. Another really epic scene is when Umbridge finds out about Dumbledore's army and they're all talking about it in Dumbledore's office. How Dumbledore says they may have met in the Hogshead during that Hogsmeade trip, but it was before the educational degree that prohibited groups that weren't approved by Umbridge, so it was okay, and this could have been the first meeting since then. And then Kingsley modifies Marietta's memory so that she can't say that there were months and months and months of meetings up until then, and Umbridge gets pissed. Marietta is shaking her head, and Umbridge is like, "What do you mean? Why are you shaking your head?" And Professor McGonagall is like, "Usually, Dolores, when someone shakes their head, it means no. So unless Mr. Edgecombe is using a form of sign language unknown to humans." And we cannot forget Dumbledore's super snarky remarks after he tells Fudge that he created Dumbledore's army in retaliation, and he says things like, "You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I'm going to, what is the phrase, come quietly." Or else when Fudge asks if Dumbledore is expecting to take everyone in the room on single-handedly, and he's like, "Merlin's beard, no, not unless you're foolish enough to force me to." And I also always forget that Dumbledore does not disappear with Fawkes right away, because that's what happens in the movie. He just hexes everyone, and then this is the first time he really talks directly to Harry in the entire book, and then he leaves. Listen, I've got a lot of problems with Dumbledore, and we're finally going to start talking about them in a few minutes, but I have to say, Order of the Phoenix is really where Dumbledore makes a transition from like the old wise headmaster to an absolute badass. Of course, we have to mention when Fred and George decide to bring utter chaos to the school and leave Hogwarts on their brooms. It will truly go down as an iconic moment in Hogwarts history. Like, I just love how afterwards everyone's like, they make me want to pull a Weasley. Sometimes I feel like just jumping on my broom and flying out of this place. And when they say, "Give her hell, Peeves," I'm just like, there's definitely a lot of really great positive moments that like shine through all of the dark depressingness of this story, and like this is definitely one of them. Also, I will forever hate that Snape stops teaching Harry occlumency because he's embarrassed. The career advice scene is another hysterical moment between McGonagall and Umbridge. Oh my god, their dynamic is so funny. Like, I hate Umbridge so much, but I just love what she brings out in McGonagall. "Are you quite sure you wouldn't like a cough drop, Dolores?" I just love how Minerva McGonagall doesn't even pretend to like or even tolerate Umbridge. She just constantly hands her ass to her, and I love it. The one thing that slightly infuriates me about this novel is how Harry completely forgot about the mirror that Sirius gave to him that was a two-way mirror where they could talk all throughout the novel, and that's why he has to go to Umbridge's office to use the fireplace to talk to him. The entire end of the book could have been avoided. Like, I get that was the point of the scene, I know, but it could have been avoided. But real talk, the best thing to come out of that scene is, "Tell them I mean no harm." I'm sorry, Professor, but I must not tell lies. Mic drop. So the end scene at the Ministry is also super underrated in my opinion. I always forget how good it is. They enter the Department of Mysteries, and there's just like a bunch of different rooms that spin around every time they enter and leave. So like they have to use X's on the doors to know which ones they've already went into that are at the Hall of Prophecies. And there's just all these like creepy, mysterious rooms, like the brain room that is just like the most ridiculous thing. But it's so interesting because we don't understand what any of this means. And there's just so much action packed into the climax. Like, it's a pretty decent chunk of the book when they're just in the Ministry and they're fighting the Death Eaters in the Hall of Prophecies. It's too much for me to even talk about in this video, but it's just so cool to see these 6 students that really came from nothing and taught themselves all of this magic, and they start fighting these highly trained Death Eaters who are trying to kill them. Also, I do love the fact that nearing the end of this scene, when like Luna, Ginny, and Hermione and Ron have all sort of been like incapacitated and they can't fight anymore, Harry and Neville are the only ones left standing and fighting, and like those are the 2 people that the prophecy that they were there to see could apply to. Jo is a sneaky writer. Speaking of Jo as an author, in the Department of Mystery scenes, the Ministry's entire collection of time turners has been smashed. And so when I was working on my Harry Potter and the Cursed Child review, which is also linked below, and I just went in like so hard about how much they messed up the time traveling system in Harry Potter, I came across this article where Jo was talking about the fact that she knew that she had created irreversible flaws in the time traveling system when she first introduced it in Prisoner of Azkaban. And so the way she addressed those flaws and plot holes was she took away the ability to time travel altogether. Obviously, we are discussing this from a British Wizarding World centric viewpoint because we don't know how the rest of the world time travels. It's never really discussed if anywhere else uses time turners. I think it was a great way to fix that problem. A lot of other people would probably argue that it's lazy. I just think she is simplifying a problem that she overcomplicated so many books ago and can't change the past, but she changes how the world develops on in the future, and I just think it was a smart way to fix it as an author. I will admit, The first time I read this book, I did not believe that Sirius died. Listen, I wasn't always the smartest reader. All it says in the book is that Sirius is hit with a spell or a curse and he falls back into the veil, and then everyone is saying he's gone. It wasn't very clear, okay? For that reason, Sirius's death never really hit me that hard. Like, obviously when I reread it, I cry because Sirius is dying. But what really hurts me about this event is the repercussions of it and how it affects Harry. It gets especially painful when Harry is dealing with the aftermath. You know, how he's immediately in denial and believes that he'll come right back out the veil, or when he finally does find the mirror and he thinks that he will be able to see Sirius and talk to him again, or when he starts talking to Nearly Headless Nick because he thinks that he'll be a ghost. Like, he is just holding on to any shred of hope that he can see and talk to Sirius again, and one after another, all of his dreams are crushed, and it's crushing for us too. And this scene where Harry is essentially having a breakdown in Dumbledore's office, like, I'm literally getting chills just thinking about it, and I was getting chills and wanted to cry when I was just going over this for my notes for this video. It is so hard to read. He's breaking everything, he's burning Dumbledore's possessions, and he's just screaming that he doesn't care anymore and he wants it all to stop, and it's just really, really hard to read. It gets me every time, man. So this is essentially where my problems with Albus Dumbledore really start. Where throughout the entire book, he completely ignores Harry, makes him feel invisible, and does not give him an explanation until the very, very end of the story. I know Dumbledore's reasoning is that he thought that Voldemort would use Harry as a spy for Dumbledore if he knew that they had a closer relationship. And I understand the viewpoint and I understand his actions, but I don't think he needed to leave Harry completely in the dark to achieve that. I think there was absolutely a way for Dumbledore and Harry to talk about this, or at least for Dumbledore to just notify Harry as to why he's doing this, so Harry didn't feel so fucking terrible about himself 24/7, because not even the one person who believed him last year will recognize him. Ultimately, I think it was cruel. I think it was a very cruel thing to do, to take this child who has trusted you and has confided in you and was starting to really build a relationship with you, and not even be able to look them in the eye when you're talking to them because you have your own theory about other things that are going on and that is more important to you. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And the other thing I despise about Dumbledore actually starts in, I believe, Goblet of Fire, and I don't believe it's actually present in this novel, but I wanted to start my discussion about Dumbledore all in one place. The first time I recognized this is in Goblet of Fire, when Harry is telling Dumbledore that Voldemort can touch him now because Harry's mother's blood is now inside of Voldemort. And so through Harry's narration, it says that Dumbledore gets a gleam in his eyes that resembles triumph. I believe this happens again in Half-Blood Prince, and it might have happened again in Order of the Phoenix. I can't really remember, but every time this happens, I get so pissed off. Harry is reliving some of the worst moments of his life to you, and you're patting yourself on the back because your theory was correct. I think that's honestly my least favorite characteristic about Dumbledore. I do hate how he is so deceptive, like we see in this book and will continue to see throughout the series. But overall, I have a big problem with this book just because of the way that Dumbledore treats Harry and the fact that he ignores him and does not explain everything until the very last minute, when so much of this could have been avoided had he just opened up to Harry and been honest with him. But it really is partially Dumbledore's fault that Sirius is dead and all of this shit happened. So the last thing I want to talk about is the prophecy. So we've now learned that the whole reason that Voldemort targeted Harry is because Snape relayed just a part of a prophecy about the demise of Voldemort and how this one person would cause it. And so Voldemort took that to mean that it was Harry, and so he marked Harry as his equal, and that is the reason why they have this connection and why Harry's parents were killed and all that jazz. And none of this would have happened if Voldemort did not mark Harry as his equal and target him. I have personally always loved this part of Harry Potter because I feel like traditionally when we think of the Chosen One, we think of heroes and protagonists who have unique abilities where they're the only person that can accomplish certain feats and defeat evil. The only person. Or else it is something that is defined by destiny or fate. And this is all because Voldemort made a decision. It is a human decision, a human act that Voldemort did that brought about his downfall. So I just love the fact that this prophecy isn't something that is written in the stars, and we don't even know if it's something that was actually inevitable, but it's something that Voldemort chose to do, and that's why it happened. And I also love the fact that this prophecy wasn't exclusive to Harry. It wasn't like it was Harry Potter who definitively was going to defeat Voldemort. It could have been Neville as well. Neville, who is constantly undermined by almost every character in Harry Potter, who's always viewed as scared and untalented and whatnot, which is completely untrue. But, you know, he also potentially had the ability to bring about Voldemort's downfall. And, like, all of the connections about the prophecy in this book are so fascinating to me. It's just another impactful element about this prophecy that really reinforces the fact that this is not something that was predetermined. It was based on Voldemort's actions and Voldemort's decision, and I just find it so cool. I do have some issues with coincidences that I'm going to talk about in my Deathly Hallows review, but ultimately at this point in the story, I love where they were going with the prophecy plot line, and I think it was developed really well. So that really concludes my review for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I have finished my reread for this year, but I do have 2 more reviews coming your way, so don't forget about them. I'm really excited to film them because Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows are my favorite Harry Potter books, so I know that they're going to be super fun reviews. Definitely let me know in the comments below, what are some of your thoughts on Order of the Phoenix? I feel like in these Harry Potter reviews, we've had such great discussions in the comments. Whether we agree or disagree, it's always so fun talking with you guys, so definitely let me know your thoughts below. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!